everyone. Welcome back to our channel. It's the Michigan couple. I'm the Michigan wife.
And I'm the not depressed really at all this week Michigan husband.
Yay! And we are here to talk about the final game of 2024. Well, depending on which bowl we go to, because some bowls are played in late December 2024.
Final regular season game.
Final regular season game. Yep, very well said. And that was Michigan versus that team down south. And I'll admit it, I'm surprised we come away with a win. I'm almost as surprised as this Buckeye chocolate looking character is here. Michigan wins the game 13-10. Initial thoughts, dear.
It's the one you have to win. It was great. Yeah, just like the kids singing in the locker room. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine. This is why you play it. It's the game, and it's the win of the year.
It really is remarkable, and I was way too nervous to watch it live, so I went out on Saturday just to run a few errands, and you called me as I was coming home. I was like 2 minutes from the house, and I looked at the clock, and I knew it was about the time the game would be over, and you said, "We won." And I almost drove off our little road here. I could not believe that we had won this game. They were the number 2 team in the country. They had all of these recruits that they had paid a huge amount of money, either through the portal or whatever the case may be, NIL money to get on the team. This was a team that was supposedly built to beat Michigan. And we, if you have been listening to this podcast or following along with Michigan football, we have not had the easiest of seasons. We have not had the best of seasons. And it did not seem like we were going to be able to go into Columbus and get a win. And that's sure enough what we did.
Yeah, if I could replicate Stephen A. Smith's laughing at the Dallas Cowboys and all of that, if you haven't seen it, look it up. I would do so in the direction of Ohio State and Ryan Day. It is. If you've listened, we've been accurate. We've been fair, but I understand why you said you didn't believe it, you couldn't believe it, you didn't expect it. I think, though, at the end of our last podcast about Northwestern, we discussed what our chances were.
Yep.
And I do believe that I said it depends which Michigan team shows up. Does the Illinois team show up? Does the Washington team show up? Or does the Northwestern team show up? Does the Michigan State team show up? Does the USC team show up?
Yeah.
And now we didn't have the prolific offense that we had in some of those games, especially Northwestern, but we were efficient. And we'll get into that a little bit more in the offensive piece. So I think the right team obviously showed up with the right mindset, and that obviously paid huge dividends. I watched it live from, the pregame to the postgame, and amazingly enough, I was pretty calm throughout the whole thing. I don't know if it was because in my actual expectations, I was like, well, we're probably not going to win this. I never said that out loud. But I guess I was managing expectations. I was just going to say, we'll do the best we can, and we'll see where the chips lie. And when that final field goal went through and there's 48 seconds left on the clock, it was probably the most enjoyable Ohio State series that I've ever watched.
It really is remarkable, and it shows you what a mental game football is at times. We were the superior team as far as in my opinion, as far as our mental preparation. No matter how many foibles we had or things that went wrong on offense, for the most part, we just came back on the next series and we just acted like the whole thing had never happened earlier. And it was clear that Ohio State was rattled when they weren't really getting their offense going, when our defense was playing an incredible game. I mean, wow to the defense. We'll get into that later, but Ohio State got rattled. Their coach got rattled. The pressure of the game got to them, in my opinion, and it didn't get to us. So it's one of the most surprising outcomes of an Ohio State game. I was trying to think of anything more surprising. I have to say, in 1995, I remember watching the game when Ohio State came in to Ann Arbor. They were, I believe, number 2 in the country. Eddie George was on the team. He was the favorite to win the Heisman that year. He did win the Heisman that year, actually. But Michigan, with the running of Tim Biakabatuka in that game ran for 313 yards,
Yeah.
and Ohio State was stunned. That compares to this game in my mind as surprising and shocking endings or results, because Ohio State expected to win that game as well. But this was going to Columbus with a walk-on quarterback and a year that really hadn't been so kind to us in many ways, as far as the different scores of the games and our results and things. And we went into Columbus, Ohio, and came out with a win. Wow. All right. Anything else you want to say before we get to the offense?
Yeah, you talked about psyche. There's a great article, a link from Cleveland.com that talks a little bit about that. It's Ohio State psyche. It's beyond game preparation and reading defenses and all that kind of stuff. It's the approach. When Michigan says that Ohio State's in mind every day, it's preparation for Ohio State every day. It's giving them the side eye. It's watching what they're doing. It's working on things to defeat them. And when Ohio State seems to, anyway, talks about it's Michigan every day, it's all of the transgressions that have transpired with Michigan. It's the toughness. It's running the ball so many times in a row. It's planting the flag 2 years ago. It's born on third base and think they hit a triple comments. It's all of those different types of things that seem to have manifested in Ohio State's psyche, that instead of truly preparing a winning game and executing a winning game plan, they're worried more about, we've got to be tough, we've got to be this, we've got to be that. It's I don't know how to quite say it. It's about the perception of what they think they need to do. I mean, Lou Holtz called them soft or something about that.
And they're still complaining about it.
And their head coach was taking shots about it. I mean, if we're that deep in your brain,
yeah,
then something doesn't click. We get it. There's beat Ohio State clocks. It's what are you doing to beat Ohio State today? It's not focused on what they did. It's focused on what we need to do to beat them.
It's a positive growth. You're exactly right. And it seems like I saw an interview today. I watched an interview today with Jack Sawyer, the Ohio State player who's actually from Columbus. He's a senior. This was his last regular season game. And this was an interview that was done about 6 or 7 days before the game, and he said to the group of reporters, he was talking about how much this game would mean to him. He's from Columbus, and he really wanted to, his whole life really beat Michigan, and he hadn't done it yet. And he actually said he had not won a rivalry game since the 7th grade. And I thought, wow, the amount of pressure that this young man is putting on his shoulders to win this one game is so immense that it's not a positive thing. It's more like just building up and just festering almost, because he hasn't been able to get this thing accomplished. And yes, it was probably disappointing in high school not to beat the high school rival, but then you go 3 years not beating the college rival, and you have this one last chance, and then you don't do it. But, I mean, we'll talk about Jack Sawyer a little bit later, but
yeah, because I don't know if we're going to talk about him here or later, because when I talk about the psyche, he's a good example of it. He's part of the heralded 2021 class that signed 4 of the top 10 recruits in the country. One of them, has a win against Michigan, and that's Quinn Ewers, because he transferred out and they beat Michigan with Texas this year.
For Texas.
But he's the only one from Ohio State's 2021 class that's ever beat Michigan.
Well, we'll talk about Jack Sawyer later, but
yeah, I have some things to say about Jack Sawyer.
I did understand some of that pressure a little bit more when you hear him say all of the years he's been waiting to beat a rival. Okay, let's talk about the offense. Frankly, This was not Davis Warren's best game. How many yards did he actually have? Was it 62 passing yards?
Yes.
62. And he was 9 of 16. Not great. 2 interceptions. No touchdowns. Not great. But, again, he was mentally tough in this game. And someone was saying, well, he beat cancer and this is probably, maybe he drew on that strength. I don't know. But whatever it was, he never let the situations break him. You never looked at Davis Warren and thought, well, he's completely thrown this game away. He just went back and put together drives. He threw an incredible pass to Peyton O'Leary, which Peyton had to get, but still, he had some remarkable moments.
No, I agree. The offense, I think, did what they needed to do. They won the rushing battle, 177 yards to 77 or something like that. Is that right?
172 to 77.
Right. So we ran the ball pretty well. I liked how we started out. We started out the game and we got a first down. 7 plays. We ended up punting. No problem. Ohio State drives down the field and gets their field goal. And then we come back and we do exactly what we need to do. We drive down from Michigan's 25. We end up down on OSU's 3. Granted, we make a mistake. 4th and 1, we go for it. We don't make it. So Kalel Mullings rushes for no gain, 4th and 1. But we're down on Ohio State's 3, and I like trying to go for it there, even though we were down 3 points. We're on the road. You do that. Ohio State gets the ball back. Our defense does a great job, and on 3rd and 9, Amir Hall makes a great interception. It tiptoes it back to the 3-yard line. It would have been nice if we would have scored, but then you never know how else everything plays out. So it all happens for a reason. We didn't score. That's fine.
And Mullings runs it in.
And Mullins runs it in. After that. So now we're up 7-3. Great place to be.
Yeah, and shout out to Amir Hall, a transfer from Albany. We're talking about Ohio State, all these big-time transfers that came from Ole Miss and this one and that one. But shout out Amir Hall, coming from Albany, playing for Michigan. He's had some great games of late, and this game in particular, he had a really good one, as did really the entire defense. But we're talking about the offense. Anyway.
So after the interception, we're down there on the 3-yard line, and Mullings rushes 2 times and gets the touchdown. Of course, we kick off. Ohio State runs a few plays, end up missing a field goal. We'll talk about that on the defense. Michigan then goes 3 and out, and we'll touch base on special teams. Great punt by Tommy Doman at that point. And then we go and run a couple of plays. It's not a whole lot of gain, but just barely enough. Where Zavada there against special teams, 54-yard field goal, puts us up 10-3, which is awesome.
He's so good. We'll talk about it with special teams, but the fact that he goes out on the field to kick a 54-yarder, and let me ask you, because you watched it in real time and I didn't, were you super tense about it, or did you think, well, this is what Zavada does?
No, I was waiting for Gus Johnson or Joel Klatt to give him the old announcer's jinx by saying he was perfect on the year over 50 yards, but he drilled it, and from TV it looked like it would have been good for another 5-6 yards easily. It was dead center.
Yep.
Which makes me laugh now because Ryan Day said after the game it was so windy and it was tough. It was a little windy out there, but I don't know, all of Zavada's kicks were right down Main Street. So, and then Ohio State did what they were supposed to do at that point. They come drive all the way back and they score. Then we get into it like a little fun, so to speak.
Because at this point we're tied 10-10.
It's 10-10.
So we're kind of matching them.
Second half starts. Ohio State gets the ball. They march down and they end up punting, which I thought was a very strange call by Ryan Day. They're on Michigan's 36-yard line, so it's 53 yards? Okay, maybe their guy can't make it, but you've got like the 3 best receivers in college football. Maybe go for it? I don't know. Maybe run a fake punt? I don't know. But hey, he punted. Turns out in the short term it looked like a good plan because they're down at 2-3 yard line, something like that. And then Michigan basically goes 3 and out. It was really a funny or funky back and forth that happened. So they start the 4th quarter with the ball on our own 33-yard line, and they go all the way down to Ohio State's 3-yard line.
And that's where he has the really nice throw to Peyton O'Leary. I just want to mention that. That was
During
a really
that drive,
nice
yes.
drive. Yep, that was a really nice
During
drive.
that drive, it was absolutely fabulous.
And Kendrick Bell threw a pass.
Yes,
to Morris.
And the neat part about that was the announcers were saying, "Hey, this is about the time where they had the Donovan Edwards pass. We need to do something because to make something happen." So your pass to Peyton O'Leary was 3rd and 8 at our own 43, and threw an 18-yard pass as he was scrambling out of there.
Yeah, very
The
nice.
other piece was during that. Well, wasn't during that one. Anyway, we get down to the 3-yard line, and this one made me mad in the moment. However, hindsight being what it is, he was wide open. So Davis Warren throws an interception right to Jack Sawyer. And, I mean, I could have caught that ball. But the tight end was so wide open, it wasn't even funny. All he had to do was put a little bit of air under it.
Yeah.
And easy touchdown.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't happen. It gets intercepted. Ohio State gets the ball back.
But they can't do anything.
They go
with
3
it.
and out again.
Yeah.
Great defense. We'll talk about them in a second. I mean, heck, we're talking about them now. So we'll make this flip back and forth. And then we go on another nice drive. And Davis Warren has a great play during that one. So he makes the first down. Mm-hmm. And then we're down at 3rd and 6, and there's some weird stuff kind of happened. Kalel Mullings had a run at that point in time, maybe play of the game, considering the time.
It looked like he was stopped, didn't it?
It looked like he was stopped, and there's
Yeah.
a great picture of Jack Sawyer being face down, missing the tackle on the edge, as Kalel escapes around to the right-hand side and scampers down for that 27-yard gain. And then we just kind of keep going and bleed off some time, and Ohio State makes some mistakes. They call a timeout, saving their time. Then they get confused and try to call another timeout because they had 12 men on the field, but of course you can't call 2 timeouts in a row, so they had a 12 men on the field penalty, which gave us a first down and effectively allowed us to run off quite a bit more time and waste their timeout. So it goes from 2 minutes or so, 3rd and 6, to obviously we end up getting the field goal, which was more of an extra point. Way to go, Zabata. There again, right down the middle, 21 yards. And now there's 48 seconds left. So big difference.
Yeah.
48 seconds and no timeouts compared to 2 minutes and 2 timeouts. So
I love
huge.
how you said, and then some weird stuff happened. It seemed like some weird stuff happened this whole game. It was just weird stuff going on.
Well, how many times do you throw an interception? We throw an interception. And where they all happened were all, I mean, there weren't interceptions in the middle of the field.
No.
Nobody was getting picked off at the 50. They were getting picked off at the 3 or the 12.
Strange. It was strange. We should say, since we are a Donovan Edwards fan podcast.
Yes, you are.
Donovan Edwards was injured, unfortunately, and had to come out of the game. Shout out to Kalel Mullings, who had an incredible game. He rushed for, let me check his final stats, 32 carries, 116 yards, and a touchdown. So shout out to him. But of course, I'm upset for Donovan because I wanted him to do well. However, he had an injury and he came out of the game. Anything else on the offense that you want to talk about before we go to the defense, which...
Yeah, you'll probably yell at me and say it should belong in the coaching thing. I'm still just not a great big fan of sometimes how Campbell calls plays.
Yeah.
It seems like when we have to score, we can get creative when we can move the ball. When it's not necessarily critical to score, whether to tie something up or take the lead, it seems like we get caught in the doldrums and we're satisfied with just being blasé and holding serve and punting it away. And that may not be fair in this game because there's a lot, like you said, a lot of weird stuff. But let's face it. You said it earlier. Davis Warren didn't have his best game. He threw 2 interceptions that could have been critical.
Yeah.
But all in all, at the end of the day, offense gets an A from me because they scored more points than Ohio State did. So A++.
Let's go to defense. I created through the AI cartoon generator that I use a maize and blue wall that's winking, because shout out to Wink.
Oh, the Wink who you didn't even like his name earlier in the year.
No, I thought he was a game show host, okay? I thought Wink Martindale is a great name for a game show host.
Well, he won the jackpot.
But he really had a great last half of the season, I will say. It seems like he's found his footing coming from the NFL, coming to college, and what a masterpiece he and the defense put on Saturday in Columbus. That wall just was an outstanding defensive wall, and shout out to Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, who is his offensive coordinator, who decided that what they should do to be effective is to run right into the middle of two of our best players on our entire team
in the country,
Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, who will both be playing in the NFL next year, I predict. They are very, very good players, and Ryan Day, for some reason, decided the thing that he needed to do in this game is run his players, his running backs, etc., right into those two guys who took care of it every single time. And it is baffling. It is baffling what Ohio State was doing, to go back to your very weird stuff was happening comment, because very weird stuff was happening with Ohio State play calling. But no matter what Ohio State tried or didn't try to do, our defense was there to answer the call. Shout out Amir Hall, shout out Makari Page, shout out Barham, who was in Will Howard's face all the time. Shout out everybody. What a team effort on the defense. And thank you, Wink. This is a wink for you.
No, we've been tough on him. We've been tough on him for not disguising blitzes, all those different types of things. Had a great game plan, and maybe it was something I think I heard on a different podcast that he needed more time to really get to know these players and know what their abilities were and what they weren't, and truly what they could do. Thought he had a great game plan. No sacks, quite a few pressures, but when the announcers are like, "Well, what do? You gonna double Jeremiah Smith and rush 5?" Well, yeah, he did that a few times. He had some interesting coverages over Jeremiah Smith, trying to block him off because he's a great receiver. He certainly outcoached his friend Chip Kelly. I know he said he's known him for a long time. He's gone up against him before. Obviously, Chip Kelly was in the NFL for a little while as well. Great game plan, executed flawlessly. And when you said shout out to Chip Kelly and Ryan Day as well, I think that goes back to the whole psyche thing. They had to be tougher. They had to be not get pushed around and everything else. And the announcers were baffled. Why do you keep running? First of all, and then secondly, when you do run, why are you running to the strength of the defense? Why aren't you stretching the field, going side to side? Why aren't you using Emeka Egbuka, Jonathan Smith, Carnell Tate as the receivers that they are? They're all going to play in the NFL too.
I think it's Jeremiah Smith.
Jeremiah Smith. Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
It was baffling. You kind of laughed.
It's crazy. It's crazy that this team, which was allegedly built to beat Michigan, had all of these receivers who are really, as you just mentioned, some of the best in the country, all of this talent that was compiled to do this, scored 10 points. 10 points. Someone was pointing out today, Arkansas State scored more points on us than Ohio State. That's wild to think about. And I cannot imagine the anger I would feel as an Ohio State booster who has paid money into their NIL fund or anywhere else to make sure that we had the best talent in the country to put together this dream team, and they scored 10 points. It really is baffling what their game plan was, but it doesn't matter. Our defense was ready for all of it, and kudos to all of them. It really made me proud to watch them, and it makes us proud to be Michigan Wolverines at this point, to see especially our defensive players on that field.
I'm gonna have to go back, just because now you've kind of piqued my interest about this whole running passing thing. I probably should have done this before the podcast, but they tried to throw it 33 times against us. I remember hearing Ryan Day say that in one of his press conferences. So I'm just kind of clicking through right now live, which is not the best way to do this. How many times did they throw it in other games?
Well, guess what? We're going to pause here.
The only other game
You
that they
wanna
threw it
pause?
in, only other game that they threw it that many times in was the Oregon game.
Oh, you already got the answer.
So they've been in the range of, at least for Will Howard. Now maybe the backups had come in, but I don't think so. They've been in the range of 24 to 28 passes per game, and all the other ones I saw: Northwestern, Iowa, Michigan State, Indiana, Penn State. So they maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're off base, and that was what they've done all year. Had that kind of balance. But still, if you have Michigan's interior defensive line,
you don't run right at them.
you don't run right at them.
I know that.
When you're missing the number one, probably one of the best corners in college football, with Will Johnson being out.
Yep.
You've got people playing out of position, Zeke Berry. You have really untested, unproven corners in secondary. And they did a great lockdown job. One of the things that Harbaugh did a great job of and brought his NFL stuff was playing matchup football. And they didn't even really attempt to take advantage of matchups that, at least on paper, they had a huge advantage on. The only time they did was in the 2-minute drive to end the first half, where they marched down the field.
Yeah.
I think they had 2 runs in there and scored their touchdown.
And a lot of Michigan fans thought, they are going to come out in the second half and do more of the same. And they absolutely did not do that, which is probably why Ryan Day is going to lose his job. It is baffling. It is a riddle wrapped inside an enigma. I mean, he was asked at the post-game press conference why he didn't throw a little bit more with all these receivers and because it was successful when they did. And he said it was windy, which is laughable because
that's this year's excuse. So it was snow.
And the flu wasn't the
flu. The sign stealing.
Yeah.
And now the wind.
And what was 2022? 2022 was the flu?
I don't remember.
21 was definitely the snow.
Yeah.
But he's had a lot of them, let's just say. Okay. So we're winking at you here. And
A++.
I can't wait for you to return. I'm excited about Wink in the future as well. All right, special teams. This is the same graphic that I used for the offense, as you would notice, because really Zavada was the highlight. Yes, Kalel Mullings, we've talked about him and all that, but Zavada, we are going to miss you if you go to the NFL, man.
Well,
you are ready.
Like Coach said, I hope I can get him to stay.
I hope.
He might go to the NFL, but hope I can get him to stay.
He's ready to go to the NFL. The NFL teams are going to be wanting him on the roster so badly, but boy,
the Ravens could use him.
We're going to miss him so much. The Ravens could use him. He goes out there and lines up for over 50-yarders as if it's under 30. I mean, he's incredible. And you were saying Tommy Doman had a few great punts
so
as
there
well?
was a 68-yard punt. Now, granted, there was no return. Caleb Downs, the returner from Ohio State, and the only player to lose to Michigan twice in one calendar year this year.
Because he came from Alabama.
Because he came from Alabama. He was an Alabama transfer, so we beat him in the Rose Bowl and then just beat him again. So sorry about that, Caleb. He was the return man, and Tommy Doman kicked the punt there, and it bounced and it rolled all the way down to like the 3, 4, 6, maybe it was a 6-yard line. I don't recall, but it was a 68-yard punt, no return. Just phenomenal. And then Zavada, what can you say? He's been solid all year. He's missed one field goal all year. He was announced this morning as Big Ten's co-special teams player of the week, along with, I want to say it was the kicker from Iowa, who also had 2 for 2 on field goals. His was only 53 yards, so our guy's a yard longer.
1 yard
and
longer.
One extra point. Zavada kicked his with 48 seconds left to go, and Iowa's was a walk-off for the win.
Wow. And let's just say now, Lou Groza committee or whoever you are that's picking this, please get Zavada on the thing. I mean, can't you just add him on or something? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This kid at least should be one of the nominees if he can't win. And he's not even a nominee for that award. So annoying. Anything else you want to say about special teams before we go on to coaching?
No. Okay. I think, God, I hope we can keep him.
The coaching staff. I have another happy picture this week as I did last week. Now, I want to say, I am not turning in my I don't like the job that Sharon Moore has done overall this year card. I am not turning that in. However, Sharon Moore has surprised me in the last couple of games, and in this game, definitely for sure has surprised me because of his ability to learn this job, which was an enormous job, and I have definitely said that I thought it was way too big a job for him. He should go to a smaller school. He should do that. I own all of that because that was my opinion, and, I felt that all year. However, in the Northwestern game, and in this game in particular, Sharon Moore showed me that, which he doesn't need to show me, who am I, right? But he did show me that he can learn on the fly, that he can adjust, and that he can, in big pressure situations, handle the situation and be able to be the leader of men, the leader and women, because I know there are women on the staff, probably women athletic trainers and all of that. I should say men and women. He can lead the team. He can lead the Michigan Wolverines. And when you contrast him to someone like Ryan Day, who was so clearly melting down, and we're going to talk about the postgame in a minute as well, but when the postgame melee was going on the field, Ryan Day was standing there staring at what his players were involved in and doing absolutely nothing. And Sharon Moore was right in the thick of it, trying to break it up, trying to get the Michigan players, to safety, to away or whatever. Not necessarily safety, but just to get them out of there and all of that. Because, of course, the Columbus police were pepper spraying people.
There were police departments from both Ohio and Michigan there.
Okay, all right. Well, they were
pepper both
spraying people,
pepper
which was
spraying,
not great.
Yeah, not at all. It's ridiculous.
Anyway, when you contrast those two coaches during the entirety of the game, but you also contrast the way that Sharon Moore has handled adversity, and I feel a lot better. I have not forgotten the times when he's challenging things that shouldn't be challenged, when he's not calling timeouts that needed to be called.
That's funny. I actually made a remark to myself because you weren't here yet that at the end of the game we had 3 timeouts still. I was like, hey, we didn't waste any of them. We didn't call them when we didn't need to. We didn't challenge any dumb stuff.
We didn't challenge dumb stuff, but we also he managed the game very effectively.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
If this carries into next year, he actually is improving and looking like, which we hadn't seen that week to week. Week to week, this whole season, it sort of seemed like things were getting worse on the coaching front. And now I'm more optimistic about Sharon Moore leading this team if we can make some other changes and also get a seasoned offensive coordinator in to assist. And it sounds like that's what we are going to do. We don't have a name yet, but I am much more optimistic than I was a few weeks ago with the whole Sharon Moore situation. What do you think, honey?
A++. You beat Ohio State. It's a successful season. Go back to what Jim Harbaugh said in '86, or any Michigan player or coach. The first goal is to beat Ohio State. If you beat Ohio State, it's a successful season. So it's a successful season. The coaches did a good job. Throughout the whole podcast season, we've had our share of issues with the coaching staff, and those remain. They're all valid. They need to be addressed. But for this game, to be a 21-point underdog on the road against the number 2 team in the nation, which
with your 2 best players, Colston Loveland and Will
2
Johnson.
of your best players out, because I would say the 4 best players, 2 of them played, obviously, Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, but 2 of your best 4 players out against an Ohio State team that a former Ohio State coach and current Fox analyst, Urban Meyer, said in the beginning of the season was probably one of the greatest collections of talent ever put together in a college team. To do that to them is astounding. Fabulous, fabulous job. You mentioned all the money, the $20 million, whatever the NIL that Ohio State paid. I read something the other day. It's actually about $41 million because they had about $20 million worth of NIL for these transfers, for those 2021 recruits, and tied up into this particular year's team.
Wow.
And then another $21 million is what they paid the coaching staff overall.
That's insane. And
$41 million.
that is
13-10.
That is one of the reasons I don't think Ryan Day survives no matter what he does in the next few games, because Ohio State is going to go on. And unlike 1995, when we basically ended Ohio State's title hopes in that victory over them, Ohio State is going to go on to the playoffs, everybody predicts. And they do have a chance to win a national championship. But the anger from the boosters, from the people that have the purse strings at Ohio State, has got to be at a level 10. And I don't know that Ryan Day survives when they have given their blood, sweat, and tears and money, financial backing for this, and he has not delivered them a win in 4 years. That just bubbles up and bubbles up and bubbles up, doesn't it? So, okay, we're going to move on.
A++.
Next section here.
This game.
Final thoughts on the game. Well, you see the dancing four in a row over Ohio State, which is great. And then we had that unpleasantness at the end of the game. From what I could tell, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I could tell, the Michigan players were trying to celebrate. They were going to go to the middle of the field and put their flag in. I don't really think you can plant something in AstroTurf, but they were going to go put it down and take pictures around it. I saw some of the cheerleaders out there as well. It didn't look like a real spiteful thing. It looked like a celebratory thing, which I should point out a lot of other teams did that, not only on Saturday, but had done before. Texas, I believe, put their flag in the middle of Michigan Stadium.
Nobody got hit.
And we just went to the locker room because Texas had won and we had lost. Well, Ohio State, and in particular, I think the first person to really notice and get upset was Jack Sawyer, although I don't want to put it all on him. But
he certainly got the most upset, it seemed. I don't know if he first noticed it, but he certainly was one of the...
led the charge, so to speak.
Without a doubt.
And then the Ohio State players ran and tried to, or trying to get the flag away from the Michigan players, and then the Michigan players didn't want that to happen, and then they started fighting each other. And shout out to Jason Avant, who was at the game in some media capacity as a sideline reporter, and he actually ended up getting the Michigan flag away from some of the Ohio State people.
The guy's got good hands. Once he got a hold of it, they weren't getting it back.
Shout out to him. The Michigan receiver, NFL veteran, and now sideline reporter, and now flag rescuer. But anyway, what are your thoughts? So the police from both departments, I guess both places, were pepper spraying people.
At least that's a statement that OSU PD put out. Who's the jurisdiction folks.
But it was a really ugly ending. The game was already over, of course, but it's a really ugly end to the game situation, or the celebration, I should say, that Michigan was trying to have. And Kalel Mullings, this will go down in Michigan history, I am sure. Kalel Mullings was interviewed by sideline reporter Jenny Taft on the field shortly after all of that had just taken place. And she asked him for what was going through his head, and he said, "For such a great game, you hate to see stuff like that after the game. It's bad for the sport, bad for college football. At the end of the day, some people got to learn how to lose. You can't be fighting and stuff just because you lost a game. We had 60 minutes, 4 quarters to do all of that fighting, and now people want to talk and fight? It's bad for the game. Classless, in my opinion, and people have got to be better." Very well said, Kalel, and that will be something that Michigan people remember for years and years to come.
Yeah, without a doubt, and I made sure that at the end when you were here and you saw the whole melee, I made sure that you saw that interview because I thought he summed it up best. Because the people who got paid to sum it up, Gus Johnson in particular, Joel Klatt to a small extent, certainly didn't do anywhere near justice that Kalel Mullings did.
I thought Gus was terrible.
Gus was horrible, and I actually usually like Gus.
Throughout the game.
He was. I thought, and I usually like how Gus does, but when he's saying it's unnecessary, a disgrace that you're planting the flag.
Something like that.
Well, Gus, and I sent a thing to Joel Klatt because Gus isn't on Twitter. There's a view of the all-22, the high camera angle where it shows basically the whole field. And Michigan's doing exactly that. They're celebrating. They're having a good time. The handshake has already transpired at midfield between the two head coaches. Yeah. Ohio State has gone to their student section so they can do their alma mater and sing the sad song and go back to the locker room. While that was going on, a Michigan player got the big blue Maize M flag, from one of the cheer team, and started running with it to midfield and went to put it down in midfield. When some of the Ohio State players saw that, a little too late because he stabbed it he planted it, so to speak. And you're right, it didn't stick in the AstroTurf, but he certainly made the planting motion. After that had already happened, several Ohio State players rush up, and you see a whole bunch of them on that overhead camera view coming into the middle of it. And they started just swinging and ripping for the flag and everything else. And Jack Sawyer was so out of control. I'm certainly not saying he's on anything, but it reminded me of the old roid rage type of days. He looked possessed. And it's like, and there's audio of him yelling after it was kind of, the flag was taken away, yelling in the face of an Ohio State staffer. Don't know if it was a coach or not, but Ryan Day was 5-6 steps away facing this interaction.
And doing
and
nothing.
Jack Sawyer
nothing.
is yelling, "You don't plant the flag here, never again." Just going off the rails. And, we said we're going to talk about Jack Sawyer earlier. And I think he kind of personifies the whole issue about this game from the Ohio State point of view. And I said the psyche earlier. When Michigan ran out onto the field, there were several Ohio State players lined up to where Michigan runs out from. Instead of being over on their sideline getting themselves prepared for the game, several of them were there where they're almost forming the tunnel for Michigan.
At the very beginning?
As Michigan's coming onto the field.
Oh, wow.
And they're clearly talking crap. And there's Michigan players have put it on Twitter or X and said, "Oh, they were trying to intimidate us." Jack Sawyer's right there, big, prominent number 33. Hey, great football player, 5-star, 2021 class, top of his class.
He's going to play in the NFL.
He's going to play in the NFL. Yeah. But he's not going to get any gold pants. And then he plays. It's like a bunch of bark. Have to be tough. I have to prove to you. It's like the little dog Spike, runs around. Hey Spike. You're just nipping at my ankles all damn day. And then you go out on the field, and he played a good game. He had the interception, but he also had quite a few missed tackles. He got pancaked a couple times by Bredesen, and then you lose.
The whole team needed his leg, because I do think he had a good game, and he had that interception, and he played. But you can't play. Obviously, one man does not a team mate.
You lost.
And also, it's the what Kalel said. Some people need to learn how to lose. That is perfectly said, because that is not the adult reaction. I understand the emotions. I really do. But that is not the adult reaction when you're talking about somebody who is going to go out into society from college, going to play in the NFL, who is going to have a whole another life. It doesn't make sense to be running around trying to beat up Michigan players.
No, it goes back to Ryan Day and his failed philosophy of what the rivalry means, like that Cleveland.com article. Ryan Day has a quote in there where he talks about it's going to be war, it's going to be this, it's going to be that, and after the war you plunder. That's what you saw. But guess what? First of all, it's not war, it's a game. Yeah. War is where people go to combat and get shot.
Yes.
Or blown up, which is not war.
Right.
It's a game, period.
Yep.
And when you have that mentality, he saw the plunder part, and you talk about how he reacted to it. Sharon Moore's right in the middle of it, trying to stop it, has addressed it and said, "Hey, we can't have this." Kalel Mullings, "Hey, this is classless. This is not the way to go." Ryan Day is on multiple videos, including the one where Jack Sawyer is yelling at an Ohio State staffer, and with his hands in his pockets, wandering around, like he was, in shock, like he had no idea what was going on. There's an actual video clip of him turning as one of his players are running by, and he goes, "What happened?" Like, dude, you're the head coach, man. Get a grip.
It's remarkable. It's remarkable.
My final thought on the game: 4 in a row. No gold pants for that entire class.
The gold
4-0 Dono. 4-0 plenty of Michigan players.
Way to go, Michigan players. And if you don't know, Ohio State players are apparently given a
set of gold pants.
Set of gold pants, but a charm of gold pants, not actual gold pants. A charm of gold pants if they beat Michigan. And even senior Emeka Egbuka, when he signed with Ohio State, he said one of the happiest days for him was going to be in the future giving his charm gold pants to his mom.
He can probably buy some.
He will not be able to do that unless he buys some somewhere else, because he is among the players like Jack Sawyer that is not, and Travion Henderson, who is not going to get gold pants through a Michigan victory. So again, stunning, wild, unbelievable, shocking. There's not enough words to describe this game. So proud of the Michigan team, and hopeful that Sharon Moore might actually be the leader I didn't think he was. And I will own up to it. I would love to be wrong about all of the things that I've said this year on the podcast about him not being ready. So shout out Michigan Wolverines, shout out Wink, shout out Sharon. Let's see what happens with Bryce Underwood and a great recruiting class coming in. And yeah.
I give them all great credit. There's a lot of talk now about what's going to happen to Ohio State. People are going to transfer out. This class is going to fall apart. It's what happens. Guess what? I don't give a damn. Doesn't matter. I care about Michigan going forward. And like you said, I think as long as Michigan continues to do it the right way and focus on the right things, they're going to be fine. We have to make some changes. We're going to have to. But the future's bright. It's a whole lot brighter in Ann Arbor than it is in Columbus or East Lansing or many other places in this great college football landscape.
And side note, this photo of Kalel is actually a photo from last year against Rutgers, but of course we're using the Creative Commons photos that we can use. This is one that I could use. Attribution.
And I won't go to the horseshoe to take we
weren't there in person to take one. So that's why you see the Rutgers players there, is because I'm using
I probably wouldn't make it out of one piece.
I'm using a Creative Commons photo. All right. Next up for Michigan is a bowl game. We don't know which bowl game yet, but here are some bowl game photos we have taken over the years. These are our photos. I know where these photos came from. Are. And bowl games are so much fun. You've got the maize and blue sprinkles on the ice cream there. You've got the maize and blue cookies that are sometimes around.
Truck down there in Miami.
Yeah, great weather usually at a bowl game, although Michigan might get the Pinstripe Bowl, which I think is in New York, so that probably won't be such a good weather.
I don't think that's going to happen now that they beat Ohio State. I think
what do you
more
think?
Realistically, I think it's the ReliaQuest Bowl, which is the old Outback Bowl, so it's going to be down in Tampa. Or I can't remember the name of the one. I'll look
Music
real quick.
City Bowl.
Music City Bowl in Nashville, which Michigan has never played a bowl game in Nashville, so that could be a good one as well. But I think the best bowl on the pecking order, from my understanding, is the ReliaQuest or the old Outback Bowl.
Yeah, I think Nashville would be interesting, don't you think? Like as you pointed out, we've never played a bowl game.
Could
there,
be.
So.
It's warm enough to play golf on the side too, so maybe it's a possibility.
All right. Well, we did it. We did it. We beat Ohio State. We had a winning season, and this is where the Michigan husband and I want to thank you for listening. We had this idea at the very beginning of the season. Even I think as the first game was coming to an end is when we planned to do this, and we threw something together, and Lord only knows this has not been truly professional, because a lot of times we didn't know what we were doing, but we always tried to give you a great product and an interesting thing to listen to, and we hope that you have been entertained at least, or amused.
You guys didn't leave us any damn comments, so maybe this time we'll do it.
Leave us a comment. Let us know how you think we did this year. We will be back after the bowl game, whenever that is. But
if you're an Ohio State fan listening to this one for the first time because this is the Ohio State game, sorry. Better luck next year.
Anyway, we're proud of getting this podcast done, I have to say. As interesting as it was to figure out how to do all of these things, we are very, very glad that some of you have decided to listen along. I'm proud of us, dear. We did it. So until the bowl game happens, we want you to keep calm. Go Blue!
Brown leads the team so grand. Woodson's magic in the stands. Robinson running free so bold. Michigan blue and Maize untold. Brady's passes tearing through. Wheatley strides so fast and true. Sanders still catching every flight. Michigan fights with all its might. We are victors of Michigan. Raise the banner high again. Howard's Heisman for us all. The Akabutuka never falls. Dear strength on battlefield, Ford's legacy forever sealed. We stand tall and proud and cheer for the Wolverines we hold dear. Oh, Michigan, where heroes rise beneath the blue victorious skies. Oh, every game they fight so true. Legends born of maize and blue. Marching forward, never yield. In the big house we reveal. Spirit fierce and heart so strong. In this anthem we belong.